The gentleman is very angry, and he angry at the wrong individual. You angry at the Caucasian people, and you need to be talking to the African American people that are raising their own children. You can't keep blaming the white people for African American problems. And you so angry, I can't believe they all three of them just sitting up there looking at him like, where the hell did he come from?
Well, let me respond first if I can.
So angry.
0. That means that the test has no predictive validity whatsoever. This is coming from white folks. So if the test has no predictive validity whatsoever, what's the purpose of using it? To keep black people out. The test is the new Jim Crow sign. 50, 60 years ago, they didn't want no black people in a certain school in Detroit. They simply say no blacks. This is a white school. Today, you can't say that. It's not politically accurate. So now, the test scores have replaced the Jim Crow signs as the new justification for segregation.
Now, you wrote in your book, which I have a copy of, The Psychoacademic Holocaust, the Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys. You wrote in this book that many of our black boys suffer from angry black man syndrome. You said that's due to the unequal treatment that's predicated upon them as soon as they enter school. So we're talking about kindergarten. Now, I am not a kindergarten teacher. I teach 6th through 8th grade. What could a kindergartner pick up to make him or her feel that they are unwanted and treated unfairly within the school system?
Now, there was a study done where they took baby elephants, and it's a very popular video on YouTube, and they took the elephants away from the primary caregivers, and they put them in an artificial family with caregivers who were not elephants. They begin to rebel, they begin to act dysfunctionally, they stopped eating, some of them died, they attacked each other. Basically, removing the baby elephant from its natural protective parental environment traumatized the elephant. When you take a black child who's around a mother and father loving people the first 5 years of their life, and you uproot them from this natural, safe, loving environment, the home, and you stick them in a public school with a white woman who doesn't even want to be there, that child can pick that up. That's not even intelligence, that's spiritual communication. You can read that something isn't healthy about the situation for me. The spiritual ingenuity of children is extremely sophisticated. When a teacher walks into a classroom, a child knows within 2 minutes whether the teacher is there to get paid or to make a difference. And we don't give our children enough credit for them understanding when teachers don't like them. And it is a shame that black children are forced to survive in a setting where they know they're not wanted, simply because their community doesn't want to build schools for them. So right now, you look at the amount of money Detroit is spending on Christmas gifts, useless junk. We could divert some of that money and give our children schools of their own. So the black boy doesn't understand this, or the girl. Why am I going through this if my community has the ability to create an alternative? It's because your community doesn't care enough to create that alternative.
Now, you mentioned well-meaning white teachers. Well, you mentioned white teachers. Now, the bottom line in Detroit, we are predominantly a black district. However, our teachers, we have a plethora of white teachers, good-meaning, well-intentioned white teachers at that. How could they avoid what I want to call faculty bias?
I don't think it's possible for a white person, teacher, psychologist, police officer, whomever. I don't think it's possible for anyone in European culture to be able to control the unconscious core beliefs that has been bred into them by their community. Most of our behavior is predicated off of unconscious impulses, not conscious impulses. So a teacher may think she's not that racist and be the greatest racist in the city. You see, because it's hard for you to really know how racist you are when you're in denial about that racism and you don't have other white people to help you become conscious of it. No one can help a white person understand their racism more than another white person. But because all white people benefit from racism, why would they try to eliminate a system that has given them so much privilege? For me, it is a conflict of interest to let a white teacher teach a black boy. It's a conflict of interest for white people to be in charge of the education of black children. Why? Because if a white teacher properly educates your son, they put him in position to rival their own son for political economic control of Detroit. What white woman is going to equip a black boy who she doesn't even like to outdo and outdistance and outachieve her own son whose education she's paying $15,000 a year for? It's never going to happen.
I just wanted to say something real quick. Dr. Umar, well, what would you say to the African Americans who are in a mindset that white is right? You know, I've heard plenty of times, I've heard people say, I'm going to go get a Jew lawyer, or I'm going to go get a Arabic doctor. You know, it's sometimes in our community, when we look at teachers or lawyers or educators, we don't think of our own selves as being able to hold those positions or the ones that's most qualified to take on those positions and roles. We think of...
Come to believe it. Because although the brain is intelligent, the brain cannot resist the power of constant reinforced programming. In black people, we have been victimized by a constant reinforced programming that is over 250 years. If you tell a child for 2 years you're nobody, they're probably going to believe they're nobody for the rest of their life, despite any contradictory evidence. But tell an entire people for 3 centuries you're nothing. Once you stop telling them that, it doesn't matter, because the replay button is already on in the consciousness. And that's why I believe that it's not enough for a white teacher to be able to teach a black kid how to rewrite a count. It's not enough. The teacher has to be able to teach them how to navigate racism. The teacher has to be able to teach them how to undo their own self-hatred. A white teacher cannot teach a black child to undo self-hatred because they have not been victimized by it. It takes someone who can understand the milieu, the cultural nuance of self-hate and racial inferiority in order to help a child overcome it. You have to redeem yourself from it so you can redeem children. The perpetrator of the act, the rapist, no way in hell can be the therapist for the person they raped.
My. Caller, welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. How can we help you this evening?
Hello, how you doing?
We're fine. We have Dr. Umar Johnson. How can we help you?
See what happened? They took the jacket off your feet and put it on the brain. Carl G. Woodward said, 1933, when you're going to throw what a man thinks, you're going to worry about his action. That's the whole thing. We took it. We had that discipline. They took the discipline out the homes and everywhere else. Because as we know, the black lady, she raised 2 families. Those families and the white family. Yet they call her ignorant. They know we are the chosen people. That's why they trust us cooking for them and doing everything for them. Okay, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller, for your input.
What you were saying, Dr. Umar, I don't believe it is impossible for a white teacher to be able to teach a black child, but the way the School of Education is set up now is obsolete. I think there's a lot of equity training out here, but they're doing it more so in corporations. And this equity training that they're doing now, it should start in the schools before it should start in corporations, because there are a lot of teachers who just they don't get it because of culture. And I just think equity training would be very good for white teachers, any teacher as far as that matter, because we have some problems too when we go with class. You know, we were brought up a certain way, and if we were happen to be brought up in what we perceive was middle class, we bring almost some of the worst biases as they may do in the classroom. So it's not just, so I kind of take back what I just said. It's not just white teachers who would benefit from that equity training. We would benefit from it as well.
I would agree with that. But here's the thing though, because I've done a lot of cultural diversity training in the schools for white psychologists and white educators. Information cannot undo belief.
That's true.
If white people have a fundamental core belief that they are racially superior to black folks, I don't care how much training you do, it will not change their mindset because they don't want to change. I've been to seminars where the teachers just sit there and they go through it, but they don't believe in none of it. Because at the end of the day, America is based on white privilege and black marginalization. The whole culture is designed that way. And education must also reinforce society's dominant agenda. Why? Because if you properly educate a black boy, you upset the apple cart. The black male in America is supposed to be dead last. And if you properly educate our boys, you set them up to potentially come in first. That right there can cause a significant redistribution of wealth, power, and resources in American society. And because of that, the schools by design must fail. But even if we presume, for the sake of conversation, that there's some white folks who can be saved, and I don't agree that they can be, but let's say for the sake of conversation, there's a few. Okay? The other thing that we have to understand is even in finding those who could help, it's still a Band-Aid. It's not a solution. A solution is something that you put in place, it eliminates the problem. Teaching white people to be sensitive to the cultural nuances of black children ain't gonna fix this. And guess what? Why? No matter how well-meaning the white teacher is, she or he is still a symbol of white power in the life of black people. The classroom still mimics the plantation in terms of who is the slave and who is the master. Just because you're benevolent doesn't mean you're not a slave master. The solution is to give black boys and black girls, black men and black female teachers who look like them, so you can eliminate the up-down relationship that black and white people have existed in since we got to this country.
See, that's an inflammatory remark I think you're making, sir. All due respect. Now, in my life, I've had the most upset from my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some very endearing moments with white people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are all white people bad? I don't think so.
It ain't about good or bad.
What is it about?
It's not about good or bad. It's about power and powerlessness. We have to stop assigning a moral judgment to political phenomena. It's not about good white people, bad white people, good black people, bad black people. It's about power and the distribution of resources. And there's no white person in American history, world history, who has ever sought to share equitably with black folks. And if you know of one, please call their name.
Well, what about the slave mistress that taught your ancestor to be Mrs.
Auld of Baltimore.
Auld of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it wasn't for this white woman introducing language and reading and writing to your ancestor, to our ancestor, he never would have grown to be the prolific leader that he was.
Not true.
Why do you
She initiated the instruction,
Okay.
and then her husband forbade it in the early stages.
So hold on, callers.
Thereafter, Frederick Douglass began to teach himself. But here's what I need you to understand. Her teaching Frederick Douglass how to read, or at least attempting to because the husband forbade it once he found out. Her teaching Frederick Douglass how to read has absolutely nothing to do with her belief that black people and white people are equal. She was simply giving a slave child the benefit of literacy. That is significantly different from fighting to destroy the differences and the systematic gaps that exist between black people and white people so we can enjoy the same level playing field. Don't confuse the apple with the oranges. It's just like white folks in Detroit might fight against police genocide. That don't mean they want you living next door. They may fight so black people can get jobs. That don't mean they want you to have the same access to wealth. We keep on confusing the simple, small little things white people do to help black with the systematic changes that none of them have ever fought to dismantle. Give me systematic changes that white folks have fought to eliminate. Don't tell me little charity here, and they did a little special program here, and they built a house for the black poor here. See, if you notice what they do with all these poverty programs, they're designed to do what? Help black people cope with the oppression. But none of the poverty programs are designed to eliminate the oppression.
Caller, welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. How can we help you this evening? This is you, caller.
How you doing?
Yes, it's you. How are you? Carl, you have to speak. Come
I was just
on.
wondering how y'all look at that gentleman. I just turned into the show.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Can you repeat?
She said she just tuned in. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I noticed that the gentleman is very angry. And he angry at the wrong individual. You angry at the Caucasian people, and you need to be talking to the African American people that are raising their own children. You can't keep blaming the white people for African American problems. And you so angry, I can't believe they all three of y'all just sitting up there looking at him like, where the hell did he come from?
Well, let me respond first if I can.
He's so angry and blaming the. Go ahead.
Okay.
Do you want to?
No, I want you to finish first. I don't want a dialogue. I wanted to finish.
Okay, finish.
We don't want a dialogue.
Carl, are you done?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Carl.
What you perceive as anger, my sister, is passion. I am not angry. I hold 6 degrees. I'm a very successful black man. I have my own business. I'm the most requested black scholar on the planet in terms of public speaking. I've never been to prison. I have my mother and my father in my life. I'm not angry. I'm passionate because I know that there's other black men who will never get the opportunities that I have. I'm passionate because I understand that that American dream that they tell black children is so easy to achieve. At the same time, they systematically disenfranchise and prohibit us from experiencing it. Don't confuse anger with passion. This is not a negative emotion. This is positive, and this is about the love of our people. Now you say I'm mad at the Caucasians. I need to look at black people. And what I'm going to challenge you to do is become more politically educated about the fishbowl that we live in, because it is a fishbowl. See, what I find interesting about black people, love to blame black people for our problems exclusively, is that we don't control none of the systems that marginalize and disenfranchise us. We talk about miseducation. Black parents need to do a better job. I totally agree. But we don't control the schools. We are not the 93% of white middle-class females who are feeding their suburban families off of the special education diet of black boys. We talk about black men going to jail, but we're not the ones locking them up. We are disproportionately underrepresented when it comes to criminal prosecutors on the state and the federal and the local level. We talk about black men not being able to have jobs, but we don't control the economy, nor do we own the banks that distribute the wealth that give people an opportunity to build their own businesses. So how can black people be the cause of their own problems when they don't control none of the systems that create these problems? However, I do agree with you, my queen, that we have the responsibility of solving our problems even though we did not cause them. And we have to eliminate this dichotomy in this conversation that says you have to blame white people for the problem and white people for the solution, or you have to blame black people for the problem and black people for the solution. I disagree with that dichotomy.